The battle for the recapture of Bataan from the 31st of January to the 21st of February 1945 by U.S. forces and Allied Filipino guerrillas from the Japanese. Part of the campaign for the liberation of the Philippines was waged to secure the western shore of Manila Bay to enable the use of its harbor and open new supply lines for American troops engaged in the crucial battle for the liberation of Manila. The Bataan Peninsula's recapture also avenged the surrender of the defunct United States Armed Forces in the Far East to invading Japanese forces on the 9th of April 1942. Background: the rapid advance of U.S. forces heading towards Manila had strained the capability of their supply lines at Lingayen Gulf, which had so ably supplemented the push south on the capital, almost to breaking point. While the capture of Manila was significant for both military and psychological reasons, the seizure of Manila Bay was crucial from a logistical point of view. Its harbor was in American hands but would remain unused until the Bataan Peninsula and the island of Corregidor in the west was secured. General Douglas MacArthur bestowed on Lieutenant General Walter Kruger's 6th Army the task to seize Bataan, and later Corregidor. The U.S. 11th Corps, fresh from the Leyte campaign, under Major General Charles P. Hall, augmented 6th Army, comprising the 38th Infantry Division commanded by Maj. Gen. Henry L. Jones and Colonel Aubrey Red S. Newman's 34th Infantry, 24th Infantry Division. The 11th Corps was to land on the Zambales coast some 25 miles northwest of Bataan, drive rapidly east across the base of the peninsula, and then sweep south, clearing Bataan, including its eastern coast. But American intelligence had badly overestimated the enemy strength on Bataan, thinking that the Japanese had a full division on the peninsula. Meanwhile, Lt. Gen. Tomoyuki Yamashita, the commander of Japanese forces in the Philippines, had decided that defending Manila Bay was well beyond the capabilities of his forces, thus only some 4,000 Japanese troops of Maj. Gen. Rikichi Tsukada's Kemba Group, which had been dispersed to now captured Mindoro, Corregidor and southern Luzon, were left to oppose the Americans. The principal unit was the Nagayoshi Detachment under Col. Nagayoshi Sanonibu. Marched to the peninsula on the 29th of January 1945, the 38th Division landed in the San Narciso area of the southern province of Zambales, Luzon. Without opposition, they promptly dashed to the San Marcelino airstrip but found out that Filipino guerrillas under the command of Captain Ramon Magsaysay had already secured the field 3 days earlier. The port facilities at Olongapo were captured by the 34th Regiment Combat Team on the 30th of January, as well as Grande Island in Subic Bay after an amphibious landing. Elsewhere, surprise was complete. There was only one U.S. casualty, an enlisted man, who was gored by an angry bull. By the end of January, Zambales province was liberated. The 38th Division's 151st Infantry Regiment secured the entrance to Subic Bay from the south and was ordered into 11th Corps Reserve. Meanwhile, the 152nd Infantry Regiment was given the mission to pass through positions held by the 34th and drive eastward along an irregular and unimproved Route 7 about 20 miles to Dinalupahan, while the 149th Infantry Regiment was ordered to move eastward, north of and parallel to the 152nd, link up with 14th Corps, then turn south and west along Route 7 to meet up with the 152nd. Maj. Gen. Hall of 11th Corps believed that Route 7 could be taken in less than a week. Battle. Struggle on Zigzag Pass. Nagayoshi had decided to make a stand in the rugged Zambales Mountains at the northern base of the Bataan Peninsula, which the Americans named Zigzag Pass. Abundance in supplies and ammunition had him prepared for a long battle, but his main defensive lines were stretched thin, at 2,000 yards, which left his position vulnerable to flanking maneuvers. Nonetheless, Nagayoshi and his 39th Infantry Regiment intended to hold out indefinitely. Zigzag Pass was described as a few pieces of ground combined to the same degree to roughness and dense jungle. The main road, Route 7, twists violently through the pass, following a line of least terrain resistance that wild pigs must originally have established. The jungle flora in the region is so thick that one can step 5 yards off the highway and not be able to see the road. The Japanese had honeycombed every hill and knoll at the zigzag with foxholes linked by tunnels or trenches, at particularly advantageous points. They had constructed strong points centered on log or dirt pillboxes. All the defenses were well camouflaged, for rich jungle foliage covered most positions, indicating that many had been prepared with great care and had been constructed well. In effect, a small force could hold off an entire army from this position indefinitely. On the 31st of January 1945, driving west of Olongapo, the 38th Division advanced east on the intricate maze of enemy fortifications in Zigzag Pass, at the same time seeking out both Japanese flanks. But on the morning of the 1st of February, after about 3 miles of steady progress, the 152nd Regiment ran into Japanese strongpoints at Horseshoe Bend, the first known major Zigzag Pass obstacles. In 2 days of heavy fighting, resulting in high casualties for the regiment, all eastward progress had stopped. The unfavorable, twisting terrain, communications difficulties in the thick jungle, and relocation of battalions to try to find the main line of resistance, along with a determined defense by the Japanese, all contributed to difficulty in correctly identifying all units of the 152nd at times with respect to their exact locations. The northwest to southeast line of Japanese defenses, definitively unknown at the time, also contributed to the confusion. With his offensive effectively stalled, Maj. Gen. Jones relieved the 152nd's regimental commander. The 34th RCT was then ordered to resume the unsuccessful eastward offensive of the 152nd on Zigzag Pass. However, after 6 days of severe fighting, despite heavy supporting artillery barrages and napalm bombing runs by the United States Army Air Forces, the 34th RCT sustained heavy casualties. Its offensive bogged down, barring any further progress. Gen. Jones then directed the 152nd to resume the attack on the Japanese to the north of Route 7, while on the 6th of February, the 151st Regiment rejoined the battle to relieve the disengaging 34th RCT. But further confusion and frustration on the pass reigned, and on day's end, Maj. Gen. Hall relieved Maj. Gen. Jones of command and replaced him with Brigadier General William C. Chase. On the day Brig. Gen. Chase assumed command, the 149th Infantry Regiment completed its eastward march north of Route 7 and linked up with 14th Corps. It then turned westward astride Route 7 to link up with the rest of the 38th Division. In tandem, the 151st and 152nd Regiments began making progress eastward through the pass. Gradually, the Japanese were pushed back and eventually overrun on the 8th of February. 3 days later, on the 11th of February, the 151st was withdrawn for another mission, while the 152nd continued the offensive, and by the 14th of February 1945, the 149th and 152nd Regiments finally linked up. After mopping up operations against scattered small pockets of resistance, Zigzag Pass was securely in the hands of the 38th Division. As a testament to the ferocity of the struggle, 11th Corps killed about 2,400 of the 2,800-man Japanese force while taking only 25 prisoners. Landings at southern Bataan by the 15th of February, 238th Division task forces under 11th Corps were employed for the southern Bataan amphibious landings. 1. The South Force commanded personally by Brig. Gen. chase, consisted of the 151st Infantry Regiment reinforced by a battalion of the 34th RCT, the 139th Field Artillery Battalion, and other attached elements. The East Force, consisted of the reinforced 1st Infantry Regiment of the 6th Infantry Division, was attached to the 38th Division for the mission. Brig. Gen. William Spence, the 38th Division Artillery Commander, led the force. On the 11th of February, the South Force sailed south off the west coast north of Bataan, spent the night of the 14th of February at sea, and went ashore at 1000 on the 15th of February at Mariveles Harbor. Bullet-pierced American World War I type steel helmets were found that had been there for 3 years, along with the whitened remains of American soldiers that the Japanese had not buried. From Mariveles the force split, part moving up the west coast toward Baguio, the other part moving up the east coast toward Pilar. Meanwhile, the East Force moved on the 12th of February from Dinalupihan south toward Pilar. It was soon augmented by elements of the 149th Infantry Regiment. At Pilar the force split, part continuing south past the town, and part turning west astride Route 111. On the 18th of February the two forces linked up near Baguio. A final major engagement occurred during the night of the 15th of February, and mopping-up operations continued throughout the peninsula for about another week. Finally, on the 21st of February, after 3 years, Bataan was again secure in American and Filipino hands. Aftermath: the Japanese lost heavily on the defensive Zigzag Pass, with more than 2,400 killed and 75 wounded. Col. Nagayoshi escaped with about 300 men and joined other defenders farther south of the peninsula, holding out until mid-February. The 38th Infantry Division lost 270 men and had 420 wounded, while the 34th Regiment suffered 68 dead and 268 wounded. Except for the 38th Division's brutal struggle at Zigzag Pass, the swift and easy recapture of the province of Zambales and the Bataan Peninsula enabled the Americans full use of Manila Bay and its world-class deepwater port. This development subsequently allowed the easy resupply of U.S. forces retaking Manila.